If you're in a large organization, don't think that you're going to come in and completely replace your whole data stack. What makes sense to do is find like a couple of really important use cases for the business, start there, get those built out, and then, piece by piece, then you understand what the modern data stack looks like and you can apply it to greater and greater parts of your business.
Neue Folgen jeden Freitag. In dieser digitalen Welt gibt es einen speziellen Faktor, der über Erfolg und Misserfolg entscheidet: Daten. Doch nur die wenigsten wissen sie für sich zu nutzen. Wer seine Kunden verstehen will, um ihnen das bieten zu können, was sie brauchen, kommt um ein professionelles Datenmanagement nicht herum. Jonas Raschedi interviewt andere Experten aus den Data-Bereichen und zeigt Schritt für Schritt, wie genau das funktioniert.
Welcome to My Data is Better Than Yours. The data-driven marketing podcast. So normally it's in German. So now it's my second time I'm recording a podcast in English. And I have a lovely guest, Nate. Welcome, Nate.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here and looking forward to discussing these topics with you.
Yeah. So, Nate, could you introduce yourself for a time?
For sure. So I'm the VP for Europe for Fivetran, and I started at Fivetran 5 years ago, actually, in San Francisco. I was the 7th person to join their team and brought on a lot of our first customers, and then moved over here, over to Dublin in Ireland about three and a half years ago. And we've built a team from scratch to a little over 80 people now. And we have, I think, around 700 customers in the Europe, Middle East, Africa region. And it's been an exciting ride, both to kind of share the modern data stack with people, but also to use it internally in our own company.
Yeah, so when you type Fivetran into Google, there are some fantastic news, right?
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, so could you give us some ideas about the news and what's currently happening on your side?
Yeah, so the news is that we did our Series D funding round at a $5.6 billion valuation. We raised 500 and something million. And also as part of that, we acquired HVR, which is a really exciting technology, especially for integrating and syncing data from databases. That's their real specialty. It's interesting. Like when I started at Fivetran years ago, I thought 5.6 billion would be kind of the end game, or that's where we might IPO, and we're doing it at Series D. So it just shows you how big this space is and how much value it's bringing to the world. So it's cool.
Yeah. That's I can't really imagine how existing it is that to be part of the journey. So you said you're the 7th employee, right?
Well, when I think there was a few people that joined and left before I joined, but there was only 6 other people when I showed up.
Yeah. It's amazing. Now it's growing and growing and growing.
700 people. It's yeah.
That's amazing. So I think the topic today, what we like to discuss is, as you said, so you see the value of Fivetran as company, but behind that there's a big market. So the big market, let's call them data driven. Currently, all companies wants to be data driven, and I think that the amazing job is to first, let's say, gather the data and to put the data into a central place. So I think what we should discuss is where in a journey from the left side, let's say, collect data, do something with the data, put them into a central place, and then at the end, the visualization things like Tableau, Power BI, or whatever. Where's Fivetran? And how could we use Fivetran?
Yeah, so Fivetran, like if you have a best-in-class modern data stack, just as you were describing, there's 3 parts to it. You've got all your different data sources. This could be SaaS applications, databases, And then it's really best practice to centralize that data in a data warehouse, one repository. And we're an automated data integration platform that does that centralization. So we sync up to all your data sources, we centralize it into the data warehouse, and then you would connect a business intelligence tool often to that data warehouse to further analyze your data. And we kind of pride ourselves on being a fully managed service, being very robust, having great security, incredible data integrity, and you not needing to manage us at all, just working. Yeah.
And if you compare a modern data stack to a, let's say, current data stack or the old data stack, I think that there are differences, right, between ETL, ELT, and stuff like that. So if you compare the classic business intelligence with now the modern data stack, I think there are differences.
Definitely. Yeah.
So could we compare on your point of view what's an old data stack and why it should be, let's say, rebuilt
for sure
in a good new way?
Yeah. So maybe just to start off, the thing that we talked about your data pipeline, your data warehouse, your BI tool, that still was the case in the old traditional data stack. There are some companies that will connect their BI tool directly to their data sources, but it's going to be very hard to join data, and they're going to run into issues when they're querying a lot of data. There's also people that'll like export Excel files and mess around with that, but it's pretty limited, right? You're not going to actually have a data-driven organization. The big shift that we're actually kind of riding the wave of is the move from on-premise data warehouses to the cloud and cloud-based data warehouses. And I think before, when you were buying on-premise and buying your own data warehouses and they were physical, the cost was really high. And so you need to be very careful about the amount of data you loaded in. You needed to make sure you didn't load in extraneous data that you didn't need. And you needed that data already formatted in a really, like, you need to understand what your reporting would be in advance and then load your data into the data warehouse so it was perfectly designed for that specific reporting, because the compute power of these data warehouses were pretty limited. And so that meant the whole process to be data driven was this very slow waterfall process where you had to go to your executives, figure out what reports they need, and then, slowly over a couple months get the data into your data warehouse. And by the time you did that, they might need other reports and you'd have to do it all over again. And people are waiting. And so
the market is growing too fast, right? I think the current situation is that the market is growing too fast. You need to ensure that you have all data which is available into your data house, and the cloud is cheap, let's say cheap or whatever.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah. And so Snowflake, BigQuery, these Redshift, they've revolutionized the space. The thing is, all of the traditional ETL or data pipeline tools are not built for Snowflake, BigQuery, and Google. They're built for Hadoop or Teradata or these old school systems. And so that same revolution in technology that happened to data warehouses can now happen to data integrations. And so all that manual work you had to do for an on-premise data warehouse, you don't have to do that anymore. And we can automate the way that data is loaded. And then once you have all your data available in your data warehouse in a clean, normalized format that's constantly updated, you can be so much more agile in the analytics that you do, because all the data is just there and you can change the reporting on the fly and you don't have to wait for this long integration process.
Yeah, I think that's a classic development, right? I think there are new things about how you could store the data, and now the market sees that they need more data to ensure that they could use Snowflake, that they could use BigQuery, because now you have, let's say, a Porsche, but you want to drive it, and you need to get the fuel for that, and that where we need to think about which ETL or ELT tool we could use to drive the Porsche.
Exactly. And that's how Fivetran didn't come into existence because George and Taylor, our founders, had this smart idea. they were trying to build big data spreadsheets in the cloud. Nobody really wanted those. And they were talking to customers trying to sell it. And they said, hey, I don't care about that, but can you help me get my data into Redshift, which was the first cloud-based data warehouse? And they're like, okay, wow, there's a market need for this. They got onto it really, really early. And there's just been such a strong product market fit that's what's enabled a lot of our growth.
Yeah, I think what we already said a few times, ETL and ELT. Yeah, the ETL and ELT, extract, transform, load, and the other way is extract, load, transform, or export. Could you explain the difference and why we should switch from the one to the other?
Yeah. So the extract, transform, and then load. This was all about the on-premise world where you needed your data. You needed to transform it before you loaded it into your warehouse because there was such limited storage and compute capacity in the warehouse. And so, but the problem with that is that you have very limited, rigid data, and it takes you forever and a huge amount of work to get it in there. And so you can't be very agile in terms of the type of analysis you do because you always have to do this data integration to support it. So with cloud-based data warehouses, the idea is that you extract and load the data into your data warehouse, and then you can do transformations or modeling across all of the data once it's in your data warehouse and ensure that you can act like it's in a really clean format that's analytics ready. And that, it enables you to be much more agile and quick and responsive in your analysis. So that's kind of the big shift. And I think a lot of people who are used to the old system kind of like the ability to control the way the data lands with a huge amount of specificity. And they can really like that control. And so for them, moving to this new model, even though it has huge advantages in terms of how data-driven an organization can sometimes be a little bit scary because they don't have that finite control. But the way that we load data is standardized and to a certain extent analytics ready. But then the modeling, you can do the modeling on top of that data and still have that element of control.
In Germany, hopefully that's the right translation into good English is better have than want. So it's more or less, let's gather all the data and ensure it's there. Based on that, think about Google Analytics and stuff like that. On GDPR, sometimes you are not able to store the data within the external tool for years. You need to ensure it's already into your database on an aggregated level or whatever to have it, and then you could go forward. And I think that the market is the speed of the market is high, and you need to ensure that when there's a new idea of an analysis or a new idea of a data product you want to like to build, you need to ensure that you have in a good time, in a realistic time, the data into your data warehouse or whatever. Otherwise, you will lose the market, you will lose the market share, or the speed, which is an important factor in the current time. Yeah.
And data storage is close to free now, so it's pretty economical. Yeah.
And to be honest, normally the classic German market only wants to build instead of buy. Because we do our best and German quality, but at least if you, let's say the marketing tool stack to be on the online marketing part, if you check the marketing tool stack, that's more or less the Pareto principle. 80% of the tools are same for all companies. So why not use a tool such like Fivetran to ensure? And I think that's amazing. Let's say do it in a drag and drop model without really technical understanding of how to code or how to whatever connect the data sources to get the data into the data warehouse, right?
Yeah, and the thing is that like we try and be the best in the world at data integration, and we have a huge amount of engineers on the back end ensuring we're doing the absolute best job in the integrity, the quality, the reliability of the data integration. But the other thing is, like, most technical users love us because there is so much work that can be done once the data is loaded to help your organization be data driven and really to give
Yeah.
access in a useful way to that data. And so, like, why spend all this time on the integration, which is just going to catch you up and get in the way of providing that value downstream when you can be providing that value? And often data integration is kind of like the boring work, and the annoying things that you have to go and fix versus the interesting stuff, which is building out models and reporting that the people can really use.
Yeah, and I think in big organizations there could be, or medium-sized organizations there could be, two people only more or less maintain the data sources and the ETL processes in a manual way, like custom connectors and stuff like that. And if you could use those people, those employees, for other things which could help the company, like
Exactly.
analysis, data products, recommendation engines, whatever, that could be amazing, and that makes totally sense, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, and I think we know that the market about good employees, and let's say um, employees with a fair salary, are hard to find.
Yeah. And you want them working on interesting things. Like, hopefully companies, if they want to stay competitive, they need to be rapidly advancing in their ability to leverage data and use data in their organization. So it shouldn't be that those people are out of a job at all. There's a lot more that they can be doing to really help drive the organization forward. And it just enables everybody to be more efficient and effective. And yeah.
Yeah, if we split ETL and ELT, I think that there are for sure use cases for the old way. Let's say if you have one system which more or less will never touch again, which are for financial use cases to show
Yeah.
a classic global report. I think you could use the old way. If you would like to compare data, if you have different use cases, if you have different stakeholder within your organization, if you have a cloud-based data warehouse, you should switch to the new way.
I think that's completely correct. Yeah. Because if you've just got one report that it's always going to be the same and that's all you're looking at, and it's a limited set of data from a broader data source or broader data set, then yeah, you're not going to get a lot of value out of a tool. But if you really want to understand your data and do much broader analysis and you really care about the breadth and quality of it, then that's where you do need a modern data stack.
Yeah, and yeah, based on that, if our guests are currently thinking about should we switch to a modern data stack, it could be a easy way to start with a POC. Let's say choosing a cloud data warehouse. Let's call it a cloud data warehouse, and then think about, let's say, instead of only connecting one data source, you could already use Fivetran as a tool to connect, let's say, 5 data sources, to compare the old way with the new way, saying, okay, the old reports or the old analysis are only using 1 or 2 or 3 connectors or data sources, and now you could combine data from 5, 10, 15, 20 data sources, and you don't need to care about how you could maintain it. You could more or less connect it in a fast way and then focus on how you could transform the data into the different use cases, different stakeholder cases.
Exactly. And if you're used to the traditional way of like ETL, you'll be incredibly surprised by just how ridiculously fast it is to get a data warehouse set up and get data integrations connected in. Like, it can be done in half a day, and the data can be there the next day. So it's incredibly quick, and we have really great people and sort of the data warehouse companies and the BI tools to support organizations in doing that. So
Yeah, and in the most time, if you modern or change your data stack, I think you mostly change your organization as well. And then you could think about if you use a tool instead of building customer connectors, then you don't need to argue which employees should do dirty stuff for the data connectors, and all could be more or less the stuff which makes fun, right? That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, and you can start, if you're in a large organization, don't think that you're going to come in and completely replace your whole data stack if it's a traditional one immediately. What makes sense to do is find like a couple of really important use cases for the business, start there, get those built out, and then, piece by piece, then you understand what the modern data stack looks like and you can apply it to greater and greater parts of your business.
Yeah, we did it at Douglas, and it was a long journey. But yeah, I think you should start, or let's say, do it in a good way. Start with a small case, and then extend the case, play with different cases to ensure that different stakeholders get an idea of how or which benefit comes with a new data stack, and then the
Yeah.
different data silos will break, and you could use the data in a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that, let's say, in 2 or 3 years, there's only the new way?
2 or 3 years. Great question.
So how fast will the market will change?
Yeah, I think all the newer companies that are growing or raising funding, or they're all using the modern data stack. I don't think any of them are really adopting older methods. More traditional companies, I think that for all of their SaaS platforms, they will use the modern data stack and migrate over the next 3-5 years. And then more traditional data sources, and older antiquated data sources, that could take longer than 3 years. But part of why we're really excited about bringing HVR into Fivetran is they've got some of the best technology for Oracle, SAP, these more traditional databases. And that's, I think that very much complements Fivetran's strength in terms of integrating SaaS connectors. And that'll really help provide that same service to more traditional industries or more traditional, but I think it'll take a little bit more than 3 years to get everything over, but it's definitely growing crazy fast.
Yeah. In my opinion, I think they need, or you need, to the guests, start the journey right now. Otherwise,
Yeah.
the competitors will start the journey, and you will lose the market, or you will lose the war, the data war. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's easy entry. Like, I think sometimes if you've been doing something one way for a long time, it can feel like it's more of a shift to move to something different. But for the companies that are getting it set up for the first time, it's very quick, and it's not that difficult. So I would agree that it's better to start sooner rather than later. And don't underestimate how relevant being data driven will be to being competitive in the future. I think it's paramount, and it's really the companies that embrace that will be successful in the future.
Yeah. To be honest, Nate, I think now we explained, or you explained, Fivetran is good, and it could be a very useful part within the modern data stack. But as you know, the German market or the European market it's very hard, and the requirements are high because German market GDPR and such things. So to be honest, in my case, if I would, let's say, use Fivetran, if I would state the requirements, stuff like security, GDPR stuff, what is your thoughts about that? And do you have solutions for that?
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting because you might think, hey, an American SaaS company, that could be tricky for us. But I think it's actually
For
one of
sure.
our, yeah, it's actually one of our strengths. So from the very beginning, when we came over to Europe, we had the data center that Fivetran operates based out of Frankfurt. So all of the data for German companies does not leave Germany. And the other thing around GDPR is that the data that passes through Fivetran, it's encrypted incredibly well, both in transit and at rest, but then it's eliminated from our system as soon as it's loaded into the data warehouse, the destination, which you own as a company. Fivetran has no access to that. And we're like a huge focus for us is rolling out very in-depth security features. So being able to block or hash data before it even goes into Fivetran and being able to control that to a very high level, being able to control the encryption keys and own the encryption keys for the data that transfers through Fivetran. And even with HVR has a deployable solution as well for the databases, and that's a new, they've joined us as well. So it's really a strong service that we have. And I would invite you to come in and have the conversation, bring in your security team, and we'll walk through it. Like we have experts that'll walk through it with you. And Germany is actually one of our fastest growing markets, both in the enterprise segment, but then also a lot of the startups out of Germany are using us. And yeah, it's pretty incredible. So I think it's a very strong and exciting market. And yeah, just talk to us because we'll usually be able to answer what you need. And we're also investing heavily, so our team is going to grow very considerably in Germany.
Is there any, so when we are currently thinking about you connect a data source and you push the data from the data source into the cloud or the data warehouse, do you have alerts or other things to ensure that the process from loading to storing is controlled?
Yeah, so we have, like Fivetran has notifications and alerts in terms of the system. Like one thing is just ensuring that it's all running properly. And so if there's any issues on accessing the data source or on moving the data or loading the data into the data warehouse, we'll alert you to that. But we have a new feature called Business Critical Fivetran. So for those companies that are very concerned about security, there's a lot of really in-depth controls where they can control the users that have access to the different parts of their system. They can control the encryption keys. They can control exactly, like very minutely, what data can go through Fivetran, and we can't access the data at all as it passes through our system. So you have control over that as well. So it's we're really working with a lot of enterprise companies where security is their top concern. Healthcare, finance, those industries as well. For sure. And then working with customers to build out the practices that we do have.
Yeah. So I think the advantages are high. So now it could be that we would like to drive the Porsche and we need to pay for a Porsche. So so how's the price model behind Fivetran? In my opinion, I would compare it against the employee salary, which I could save, to be honest. So let's see if I could compare it, or if it's a positive use case or a business case. So what is the price model?
Yeah, so in terms of the pricing for Fivetran, if you're curious, we price based on volume. So that is really similar to Google or Amazon. And the more you use, the cheaper it gets. So there's a really good curve that makes it economical. And we have really good reporting within Fivetran that shows you exactly the volumes that you're getting from all of your different data sources. So it's super easy. You have great control. You know exactly what you're paying for. And it's very intuitive, which I think makes a pretty seamless experience for our customers.
Nate, I think if we let's say switch back to the last 30 minutes, we get a feeling that we need to change the data stack to a modern data stack, to be honest. And I think if the companies are not willing to invest, are not willing to start in that will be a big fail. If you I think the classic consultant stuff is use cases or value cases and stuff like that. So um, if we think Fivetran in a use case, what could be the easiest and best use case or value case which we could pitch into the company
Yeah, so I
internally?
think a lot of the standard use cases are very common with Fivetran. So if you want to get really good insights into your marketing performance and understand how people are interacting across different marketing channels, Fivetran is very, very strong with that. Understanding your sales, understanding your support systems, your engineering, all the different departments. And then even like one thing that we are really good at is if you want to do analysis across departments. So understand if the features that you're building in your product are being used and where the support requests are coming from and which features or which customers are causing the most support requests. So there's a lot of cross functional analysis that you can do. But I guess for me, the coolest thing is when you see organizations that have really strived to become data driven, and there are people that you wouldn't expect within the company driving pretty considerable results for the company because they've become data driven. So, one example of that was this company called MVF out of the UK, and they basically get leads for companies. They generate leads. They're a pretty big company, um, and they have people in call centers that are calling companies to get leads all day. And the people in the call centers realized that a lot of the leads that they were generating for a particular job or for one client weren't actually useful for that client. But they might be useful for another client, a month or 2 months. And so they actually built out the reporting. These people in the call center built out the reporting themselves, um, and and did the analysis. And the company then saw it and jumped on board, and they close to doubled the revenue of their company. And these are people in call centers that just had the idea and were able to access the data, do the reporting, make the business case. And so, I think there's a huge amount of value that the executives or the business leaders can get from being data driven, but also really untapping or the ingenuity and curiosity and innovation of your wider org can be hugely powerful, and it's pretty exciting when it happens.
Yeah, I think often you don't think about the data which you could use for use cases because there are more or less barriers to that they think about. Okay, we need 3 people or an agency, a consultancy to connect the data source, to bring the data source into the business intelligence center, whatever, to model, to transform the data, to put it into report, and then it's, let's say, a project for 6 months instead of
Yeah,
now thinking about, okay, let's think about how we could have a plug and play situation. Think about, we need to use Google Analytics into our in combination with the financial data. Let's do it.
exactly.
Or we need to switch Google Analytics with Adobe Analytics. Oh, it could be a project for 3 months. No, it could be a project, let's say, for 2 weeks. 1 week for connection, and the second week for, let's say, data quality to ensure all is there, and then starting with use cases to grow within the organization. And I think that's the most important thing. Time. You need to think
Time.
about your time. Yeah.
Yeah. And you might think data is something that, just analysts or engineers are passionate and excited about. But honestly, everybody in the business, when they can truly get access to data and answer questions, it's incredibly exciting. And I think where we're at in the modern data stack is huge leaps and bounds from where we were, but there is so much further to go. I
For
you know,
sure.
I don't think any organization is truly data driven yet. And it's kind of exciting being on that journey and just steadily making more progress in that direction.
Yeah, I think that's different grades of maturity. I think you will never be 100% data driven. You need
Yeah.
to grow and grow and grow. Think about new ideas, and it's a long journey. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Nate. After 40, more or less 40 minutes, my last question, my best question for sure. It is, what does Nate do privately with data? How you handle data in your free time, Nate?
Yeah, great question. And actually, I have an example from my wife, which is really cool. She works in the data industry as well. She's a marketing director, and her whole team is doing a fundraiser right now for refugees from Afghanistan. And basically, what they're doing is they're all doing different types of exercises, running, swimming, cycling, and they're able to track it and see all sorts of data, like the speed at which they go, the distances they go, and then it's all put into a system where they're generating funds for this charity. And then also her company is matching it, and the CEO of her company is matching it. And it's really bringing the team together and engaging people a lot more, because they compete against each other. They can see all the different metrics. So I'm supporting her in that, and that's probably the most exciting personal use that I'm working with.
For sure, yeah. I think that's a good one, and I think that the benefits are high for that, and gamification with data in a good way.
Yeah. I also love sailing. Sailing around like the Mallorca, Ibiza, and things like that, and so looking at data from wind speeds and directions and how fast you can get the boat going and all that kind of stuff. And even the distances and charting courses. I love doing that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a pleasure, to be honest, Nate. I think that's, I always would like to zoom out and to see the whole picture about the modern data stack, and on the left side is the ETL, ELT stuff, and on the other side is the Tableau stuff, and then beside of that, data science and stuff like that. And I think Fivetran have a very important role to ensure that we could ensure within the organization that you could use data to have, let's say, values based on data. So it should be not really data driven, it should be value driven, and you should use the data to get value out of your business, right?
Yeah. I think our mission is to make data as simple and reliable and as accessible as electricity. And if you think back a long time ago, that was something that was really cumbersome and hard to create and would have fluctuate and have issues. And now it's just part of life and you don't even think about it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're going. We're on that journey. And the results that are going to come out of it are pretty exciting, and probably, a lot of them we can't even yet comprehend. So.
Thanks a lot.
Cool. Yeah, no, my pleasure. Thank you for the conversation. And it's a pleasure, and it's a pleasure to work with you and with Douglas as well. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that it's no secret that we are using Fivetran at Douglas, and to be honest, I don't know. I don't nearly do the comparison between price and salary of the employees, because the speed which we gain through Fivetran, to be honest, that's amazing. And and what I love is to have a partner or a partnership on eye level.
Yeah,
and that's great.
Wonderful. Well, look forward to continuing it for years to come.
Yeah.